Good morning guys, Dan here. Welcome back to another Miscellaneous Monday. As you guys know, Coco recently came into our lives, and now that we're getting ready to actually leave the dock, we decided it was time for her to get her very own leash so that she can't wander away too far. So today I'll be putting together a special line so that we can tow our dinghy. We've seen and heard of a few dinghies getting lost at sea due to inadequate tow lines, which is something we're desperately trying to avoid. So a few days ago, I grabbed some supplies, and today I'll be putting the whole thing together. So let's roll that splicing montage. Well, I just finished splicing this line that's going to be our dinghy tow line, or our dinghy painter. It's really important that it's made out of polypropylene because polypropylene floats, which means if there's any slack, the rope floats and it won't go down and potentially wrap up around your prop and cause all sorts of damage. I've got a carabiner on this end, and I did a double splice eye right here because this is going to be the main tow line. This line's going to clip on this giant eye right here, and then from this eye back to these extra D-rings are going to be some Dyneema line that's going to act more like a bridle to keep the dinghy in line when we're towing it. We don't plan on towing it all the time, but it is going to be nice to be able to tow it finally, because our old dinghy you could never tow. It would end up planing and then burying itself into a wave. But this dinghy has this giant reinforced eye on the bottom, which means we'll be able to tow it, and that's just going to make moving from anchorage to anchorage a lot easier, especially in places like the Bahamas where sometimes you only move a couple of miles. Taking the motor off and flipping it on deck is just a pain in the butt. And now I need to measure the lengths of Dyneema. I need to come back from that splice back to here, so there's actually going to be 3 points of contact on the dinghy. Time to get the measuring tape. Alright guys, the last thing I need to do is make the two side pieces for the bridle out of this 5mm Dyneema. It's a lot easier to splice Dyneema than it is to splice double braid. All you really need to do is measure the length that you need and get a little fid. I like to use this little old mechanical pencil, works pretty well. Feed it back through itself, taper the end, done. Super easy. The general rule is to feed it back into itself 70 times its own diameter. So this is 5mm Dyneema. 70 times 5 is 350 millimeters. I've marked 35 centimeters right there. So now all I need to do is feed on this carabiner, feed it back through itself, taper the end, bury it. Probably put a little whipping around here just to make sure it doesn't come out while it's slack. I've got 2 of these to make with a splice in each end. So I'll show you what they look like when they're done. Well, I just finished splicing together our dinghy painter, and I'll hook it up and show you sort of how it works and the theory behind it. This is float line, so it's a nylon braid with polypropylene, so it actually floats, but it's still kind of stretchy, and that's the part that goes to the boat. And then on this side, this is where I spliced all the lines in, sort of a double splice, big carabiner. It get clipped on here, this giant tow hook. And then these Dyneema lines on the side, mostly for redundancy, but also to kind of help it keep straight while you're towing. And those clip on the D-rings, and then they're loose, but if it starts to get off, it'll kind of help steer it. Yeah, that's our tow line. Whee, look, I'm towing a dinghy. This is 7/16. They make a 3/8 one as well. I'll leave a link for it down in the description, but it's very important to keep tow line floating. That's why this is made out of polypropylene, because it floats, because otherwise it can sink, and if you're not careful, you wrap around your prop and cause all sorts of damage. So towing a dinghy is something we don't plan on doing very often, but if we do need to do it, it's going to be nice to know that we have sort of a bomb-proof tow line. This dinghy is made out of Japanese Hypalon, which is super durable. It's pretty much best of the best, and we expect it to last for a very long time. These D-rings are on reinforced patches, and actually we could tow the dinghy from these patches alone, and that's why these Dyneema sort of side lines are attached there. So if anything ever happens, it'll be fine, and we can still tow it from these side patches. They're super reinforced and they're super strong, but the main tow line is attached to this tow point down here, and it's actually one of the first things we noticed about this dinghy when we went to go look at it, was just how incredibly beefy this thing is. The ones at West Marine were probably only 1/8 of an inch thick, and the ones on the high fields were maybe close to 1/4, and this thing is just over 3/8 of an inch thick. It's super, super durable, and it's welded down on both sides, and it's welded right to the aluminum hull. So the other thing that's nice about ribs is that the tow point is down low underneath the bow. The problem that we had with our portaboat is that to tow it, you were actually towing from up here, and it would end up sort of planing and then plowing down into the waves and stuff like that. So from towing down low, you're actually towing it up and keeping the bow out of the water, so it shouldn't ever flood or get plowed into a wave and sink like the portaboat did. All right, that's it for our dinghy painter or dinghy tow line video. I know I've done quite a bit of double braid splicing before, and I don't think I've ever really showed a detailed video of how we do it. If you guys want me to make a separate video on how to splice double braid or how to splice Dyneema, let me know in the comments down below. Yeah, I think that'll do it for this video. We'll see you next time. Cheers!
Cheers! Bye!
That's my intro. Don't make me laugh. What?
I like how you looked at me. That was my intro.
All right.